Hello everybody, it's Larry and welcome to today's video. And we've got a video for you today that's absolutely imperative that you really understand and what this can do for you. And it's not on Ancestry. We do Ancestry most of the time. It's actually going to be on another website, and that is MyHeritage. MyHeritage has a couple of jewels. Now, it is going to require a subscription in order to use the advanced features. It has a basic one that'll let you put in a tree of 200 or 250 people in it and do some basic stuff. But you can use your ancestry information over here and really get a huge head start. And I'm going to show you that. So if you go to the Ancestry website, you can go to your DNA profile page, and that's your DNA results summary page. And you can go over the settings. Now I'm not going to do it because it's got some of my information and I don't want to show it in the video, but go to the settings and you can download your raw DNA. And that's actually in one of the other videos, so we won't go over there. It's actually, there is a video on how to port it from Ancestry to MyHeritage. It's one of the videos, and I'll put the link in the description below. So download the raw DNA and upload it to MyHeritage. The second thing you can do is go into trees where it says create and manage trees. And you can take your tree right here and you can do manage tree. I'm going to pick the first one. And you can export the tree. Just click right here on export and it generates you a GEDCOM file. And just save that to your desktop. I always like to save it to my desktop so it's easy to find. You should see my desktop. It's littered with stuff that's so easy to find that it makes it hard to find stuff sometimes. Then you can come over here to where it says family tree and you click on import GEDCOM. And so you just click browse, and like I said, if you put it on your desktop, like I said, you'll be able to find it right there, and then click upload. And it'll actually upload your tree, and it'll send you an email saying, hey, we've uploaded your whole tree and it's ready to see. Okay, and I did it beforehand so that we could get going here. So I'm gonna do my family tree. So I click on my tree, and the first thing I notice that it defaults into this view, and let's say I prefer the pedigree view, and so it's going to change everything over to the pedigree view. It takes a little time here. So notice how it's not all in there. It doesn't shape it so that I can see everything. So I actually have to come up here to the slider bar and make it where I can see everything. Pull it down. Can I see everything there? Yes, I can. So if I go over, and I'm just going to quickly go back to the main page, maybe I was going to check something. I'm going to come back to my tree. The first thing I notice is it didn't keep me in pedigree view. It took me back to the family view, and that's kind of frustrating. And I went to the pedigree view and it didn't keep my sizing, and it didn't auto size. So if I go over to Ancestry and I come over to my tree, the first thing that you're going to notice is it does auto size your tree so that it all fits. And if I click over into the other view, it brings it over here, and if I come back, it doesn't auto size it for me. The other thing is I can move this all around, okay? And that, it's going to be more here in a second. So let's get this slider back down here to where I can get everything on the page. There we go. Got everything in there. Now, I can't slide it left and right. This is the middle of my monitor, okay? This is I'm sitting in the front of my desk. I have my monitor squarely in front of me. I don't have it over to the right or over to the left. Actually, for those that want to know, I've got a triple monitor setup. So this is my middle monitor, and I've got one on the left and right. But this is in the middle of this monitor, which means I have to turn my head to the left to begin reading this information. And I've got a fairly large monitor, so that's a little bit uncomfortable. I can't slide. See, I'm trying to slide this thing over. It will slide over. I can go up and down. Why it'll let me do that at that point, I don't know. It's like, here, you want to miss some things or see it all? I'd prefer to see it all. So, it should do a little bit of auto sizing. Should let me drag it around. But that being said, that's one of the very few frustrations you're going to have with this website. In fact, from this point forward, this thing is really, really nice as far as managing your tree, cleaning your tree, and doing stuff with your DNA. So let's go back over to here. And let's say on Larkin Brown, I want to make an edit. So I click on the person's name. Okay, so I've got to make one click there. I'm going to click on quick edit. That's 2 clicks. And now the information that it brings up, and it's going to take a second here, I can edit the name and birth, death date, and places. The status alive or not, and gender. That's all I can do. So let's go back over to here. And I'm going to come into, Larkin Brown, and I'm going to click this little edit icon. This is awesome. I mean, this is night and day above the other one as far as that. So yeah, sure, I get the name and I've got, the birth date and death place just like before. But looky here. His wife, he was married to Mary Taylor and had my half sister, Rebecca, whom I never met. She died of cancer before I found out my DNA surprise. And, it has the marriage date, marriage place. And then this is my mother, who, this was a one-time thing or whatever with. They were never married, so I can change this to partner and click OK and save this. I've actually now changed the relationship from the quick edit page. And I come over here to Ancestry, and I've got no such thing. So the quick edit on MyHeritage, definitely much better. Although, it is frustrating that I literally have to turn and look to my left to do this. that part is frustrating. Now, this is one of the jewels, and you do have to pay for this. It's a premium service, but it's worth the money. Come here to Family Tree, and oops, I accidentally clicked it, so now we're back in the other view. Again, that's why I said you're going to notice this, and you're going to be frustrated with it, and then you're going to notice that the auto sizing isn't there, and go back to that. But let's go back right down here where it says more. Right here, consistency checker. This is great. Now you got to remember, I've got a tree for Jones. I've got a genealogical tree for 30 years. It's absolutely freaking pristine for Basie, and I'm just now going through the muddy waters for my one for Brown. But I realized how panicked and the emotional problems and stress I had with the DNA surprise. So rather than make a new tree. For me, I've been making the new tree in order to figure it out, but I glommed on a lot of the dirty information in order to figure out who my father was. And at that point, my whole mission in life changed to helping you and helping others. And so, trying to figure out, all the stuff in my tree has really taken a backdoor step. It's no longer, I spent 30 years to make it this, imperative that I have this right for generations to come. At this point, I think that in the future, DNA is going to iron all this stuff out and all the trees will get cleaned up because DNA is going to match them all. But until that time, I want to help as many people through that hardship that is a DNA surprise. That's what this channel really and truly was intended for. Now, it has a lot of great genealogical information, and that's why we have a lot of followers, from that community as well. But I've even thought about renaming the channel DNA Surprise. That's how much is towards this. But this consistency checker, and again, it does require that you have the premium version, and there is a cost to this. Maybe you can do it with the trial in the time there. Dolly Mae was born in 1902 and is not marked as deceased, and is rather old, 116 years old. You can mark her as deceased. Okay, so I don't have to put in a death year. I can simply right here click. Now she's marked as disease and alive but too old. Okay, so now fact occurring after death. It shows here that Martha McCarter 1941 was after death date in 1909. Now there was some documents, and the documents were dated 1911, and the 4 and the 1 are right above each other on the keyboard, so that was a fat finger. And it wasn't a residence as so much as some other documents, probate and stuff about her residence that was dated there. So that was actually right. And then here, this 2003 for him and his wife occurred after that. And that's because somebody had the date that they did it. So this would help me clean up my tree. And the same thing here. This was an update in one of those trees in that family. This is the date of the record change occurred after a date. Well, yeah, because the record was changed, and it was changed in the older systems that recorded the date of the change. And so those are not incorrect so much as, now this one would have been 1911, but these are actually correct. And so, we can actually mark those and do that. And here it says married but too young. It says Ida Bell Roberson was born in 1913, and I've got a marriage date November of 1922. And that's correct, incorrect. It's correct that it's wrong. It's correct that it's incorrect. She was married in November, but in 1943. And so, yes, she's not 8 years old. How I made that mistake, I don't know. I typed it in, and of course I do the 10 key, and so I did over to the right, and I just messed it up, and this caught it. So this is going through all this stuff that, this was actually my second DNA surprise. This family was, because he's married to Perryman, which after I figured out my DNA surprise, I started using the DNA triangulation on all of my tree. And that's how I found out that my mother actually had a different father than her birth certificate and from her adoption records. So it's all messed up as well. But we figured out who it was, and this was his actual wife. And so I don't know where, maybe I was thinking of 1922, or for whatever reason, I typed that in wrong. So I do need to correct that. And so the correct date on that one was actually November 9th, and it was 1943. And so I can save and continue there, and just save and close. So there we go. And you can see in my note, it even says that she was married November 9th, 1943, was in my note, but my date in there. So I knew it was in my documents, but I had typed it in that field, or maybe, Family Tree Maker exported it, or for whatever reason, my tree was incorrect insofar as that was. So when I went here, you go to more, the consistency checker, this alone, if you've been doing genealogy very long at all, take your GEDCOM from whatever site, 23andMe, MyHeritage, FTDNA, Ancestry, whatever. Take it, bring it over in here. Now, if it's over 250 people, you are going to have to get the premium, and you have to get the premium anyway to get the consistency checker. This is worth it. I mean, good grief. This is worth the free trial for darn sure. And, you're going to find some other stuff on here that you're going to want to do too. So that's number one. There's 2 jewels in this one. Actually 3, because we're going to tell you who won the DNA kit giveaway. I mentioned it here because I'm not going to say I'm putting it at the end. I might slip that in anywhere in here, so we find out. That way you just don't jump to the end and try to figure out who it was. Anyway, so I guess this is the first gem in this video. And we got another one coming up, and then also who won the DNA kit. We're going to come over here to DNA, and it's got the same stuff like everybody else. It's got our ethnicity estimate. The difference was here, it shows me pretty much 99% English and 1% Middle Eastern. It does have a nice kind of cool video on it. So if you click on the ethnicity estimate of its own, it has this little play intro. And for those of you who have multiple ethnicities, this is actually pretty cool, but for me, it's really short. But if you upload your DNA from Ancestry or 23andMe or one of the others, this kind of video is really kind of cool for presentation, like if you're presenting to a group or something. So it says, hey, look, Larry, you're 98.9% English and 1.1% Middle Eastern. And for those of you who have multiple ethnicities, it'll go through in kind of the order of your percentages and take you all around the world. For me, not very spectacular. 99% here, 1% here. Thank you for playing. So there's that. The DNA matches is just like the Ancestry DNA matches, so we're not going to go over that one just now because it's the same. It's new people, and so you do want to do it and go through that, but that's not what this video is about. I'm here to show you the gems that make MyHeritage worth the subscription price. Auto clusters. Oh my goodness, folks. We talked about clustering on Ancestry, and I've actually got an ebook that's about to come out on how to do that. But the auto clusters really is amazing, and you're going to want to use this. Now, this was actually developed by Everett Jan Bloom, and I've been in some talks with him. He has collaborated with MyHeritage, and so if you upload your DNA to MyHeritage, you get this through the MyHeritage site. Okay, so this is going to be the matches through MyHeritage. If you use his tool, and his site is geneticaffairs.com, if you use his tool, you can also do this with either 23andMe or Ancestry. And by doing that, you get the same auto clusters on that information. And when you do, you get a whole lot. Let's see. Right here, you get this MyHeritage auto cluster. So let's just kind of look at this. When you open the page, you'll actually send it off. It'll get you an email and come back. And it's going to go through all the names, and it's going to start sorting them. Okay, what it does is it sorts this name, and then there's Aubrey Yancey, and they match these other 3 people here. And you see here that Aubrey Yancey's there. The same names go across as down. And so these ones in the middle, that's where they're meeting themselves, the dark ones there. But this person matches all of these people. Okay, and this one matched all but one, all but one, all but two, and they clustered them in here. And so these family members, they're all related to each other. Now there's some outliers, okay? The one person is related, so Aubrey's related to that one person, and Aubrey's related to this one person, but not related to the others, so they're not clustered in there. Now here, like on this one, Desiree is related to these people, so that could be like a subcluster, maybe her descendants, or there could be some other reasons for that. But the main thing are these clusters of names, and you can actually get some great information out of that. So if you pull it up, the cluster information shows here, and I'm just going to tell you, if this is really, really handy, it clusters together, and you can kind of get a checklist. See these? Think of these as family groups, okay? So there's a family group of 4. Basically, however wide the block is, that's however many they are, because these names and these names are the same. But this tells you these 4, that block is solid, which means they all match each other. This block's pretty solid. This one doesn't match this one. That's the only one. This block has, one person kind of out. But these are nice blocks, and this is like the color coding we did when we went to Ancestry, and we did the DNA matches and the shared matches. It did all that, and right here there's only 8 of them in this list here, this cluster of 8 people. So that's right here, it says right there 8 members, 5, 7. So it's got these little mini clusters. And when I did the shared matches on Ancestry, there'd be 100 names or more in that. So by doing it on Ancestry, there are some advantages to doing it that way. There are some advantages to doing it this way. So my advice to you is I would do it both ways. If you're not using this auto cluster feature, you need to be, especially if you're doing a DNA surprise, because you can identify the names in this group, okay? And if you identify these are all my family groups, but if you can identify these groups and you identify this is a paternal and this is a paternal, you can say, okay, that's going to be on a grandmother's line, grandpa's line, okay, that grandpa's line, and you can start really researching their trees to get the information that you need. This is really, really cool. Really, really cool. Now, the last thing I'm going to say about this one is, let's go back over here to the DNA tools again. So you go to DNA tools, go to Explore. If you go to the Genetic Affairs website, not only are you going to get this auto cluster, but he has another feature there, and that feature is called Auto Tree. And Auto Tree is like through lines. The difference on through lines is through lines goes through and says, okay, we're going through all these searchable trees and we're doing that. And the process, going from step A to B to C is different than what he does here. But again, his stuff works with 23andMe, Ancestry, FTDNA. And if you go to those sites and you do these clusters, you can do an auto tree. And it will take these clusters of names and it will go out and find similar surnames and go and look at any trees that those people might have for you, and it will build you a tree kind of like through lines. He calls it auto trees. Ancestry calls it through lines. And it will make the connections. Now, what was interesting is when I did the one from his website from Genetic Affairs, it made through line connections for one of the grandparents that Ancestry didn't make, and it was using the Ancestry site. So basically, through lines didn't connect me for whatever reason. It didn't meet their fact check criteria, but it did on his. Now, a lot of them that were there on Ancestry's were not on his, and a lot of them that were on his were not on Ancestry's, because his is a little different. His takes, and when he does the auto tree, puts them into the clusters and tries to find the MRCA for this group and the MRCA for this group. So it's not really looking for my ancestor and the lines to me. It's saying, okay, this block, who is the MRCA for all the people in this block? How are they all kin? How are they all kin? How are they all kin? How are these, each one of these groups, how are they kin to each other? And tries to make little mini trees on that, mini through lines, which is, Ancestry does that as a subset. Sometimes when you open it up, it gives you the subset on the through lines. But, that end, this is really, really a jewel, and you're wanting to do that. So the two things you're going to want to use here, you're going to want to use the consistency checker, and you're going to want to use the tools and do the auto clusters from MyHeritage. Download your stuff from Ancestry, download your stuff from 23andMe, FTDNA, wherever you took your DNA test, upload it to here. Take your GEDCOM from wherever you're keeping it, whether it be, your Roots Magic, whether it be Family Tree Maker, Ancestry, 23andMe, FTDNA, wherever. Put it up in here. Run that consistency checker. Clean that up. Clean up over here and use these DNA tools. Use that DNA tool for the auto clusters, and that will give you some huge amounts of information. Now, the searches and stuff, and some of the stuff like with the tree, again, from a quick edit perspective, you can't beat it. Although, again, you click there, it popped up the little node of everybody, so that's great, and it doesn't keep the view, and it doesn't auto size the view. So there are going to be some things about MyHeritage that will frustrate you, but don't let that dissuade you. When I was looking for my DNA surprise, uploaded my stuff here, and it kind of dissuaded me. I found myself with the extra clicks dealing with the tree, because I was doing a lot with the tree, and the DNA tool, the clustering tool, wasn't there. And, the consistency checker, there was nothing to check because I didn't know my new tree. So I didn't have this value with MyHeritage, and so I didn't fully utilize it. But now with the auto clusters, it now can be very useful for those with a DNA surprise. And with the consistency checker, now that I found it and you've gone beyond the surprise and you've figured it out, and you've been like me and your tree looks like trash because you slammed this thing together so fast trying to figure out who a family member was, this consistency checker will help you clean that up and get it back to being a good tree like it should be. Your tree should be clean and well sourced. And, when you work with multiple trees and you merge them, it's going to get junky. You're going to get, multiples of the same thing. And that's what happened on the consistency checker. You'll see that it shows, I've got multiple information for the same thing, multiple marriages of the same couple. It's the same people, same stuff, multiple birth facts for the same person. So, remove redundant fact, remove redundant fact, remove redundant fact. So, if there's 3 redundancies, which means I've got it in there four more times. And that's probably because I merged 4 trees in order to get the master tree when I figured out that I was a brown. And then I started working from that tree to get to where I was. So there you have it. There are some absolute diamonds inside MyHeritage to use. It wasn't as useful in the DNA surprise before, but now with the auto clusters to go along with the DNA matches, it really is. Even though it has a smaller pool of people, it now can compete head to head with 23andMe and with Ancestry, I believe, simply because of the extra value that it's giving with that auto clustering feature. You had to before go to a GEDmatch or something like that to get that. So now you can get it right in here. That makes MyHeritage now right up there as far as its value in figuring out who you're related to. Now, before it was Ancestry number 1, 23andMe number 2, and that's simply because they had the largest pools of people, 15 million and 10 million, to check from. Well, that's great, and I'm not saying that those aren't still, places I wouldn't look right away, but both of those can be uploaded for free in here to MyHeritage, and then with the tool, you can do the auto cluster on it, and you can get insights that you can't get on 23andMe and on Ancestry right now. So that gives this one, now it's stepped up there to play with the other two, and it's right there head to head on what it can do for you. Now, as far as testing here, I don't think they've done enough because their pool isn't big enough, and because you can upload for free, I'd test it either 23andMe or Ancestry, and I'd lean towards Ancestry. I did mine with Ancestry simply because it had the largest pool, and I wanted to cast the biggest net. And then, I was able to catch the fish without having to go to 23andMe. But I think that the smart play is always Ancestry and 23andMe. That way you capture the whole gamut, and then you can upload those tests to MyHeritage, FTDNA, and some of the other sites if you need in order to, figure some of the stuff out. And now I'm going to talk about who won the DNA kit. And we were talking about Ancestry having the biggest pool of data. Well, congratulations to Chrisanetta Wallace. She submitted, it said in her comment, Ancestry DNA, because it would bring closure to my life. seriously. I look forward to getting that test to you. So if you will, just send your mailing information to the email address on channel, which is dnafamilytrees@gmail.com. You can see the exact spelling in the about portion of the channel. And I hope I'm pronouncing this correct, Chrisanetta. And so if you'll send me that information, we'll get you that DNA kit. And then hopefully in about 6 to 8 weeks, you can tell us your progress on how this is helping bring closure to some of the things that you're obviously researching right now. So there you have it. There's the winner of our DNA kit, and she picked Ancestry. And so Chrisanetta Wallace, congratulations. A big hand of applause. This is where I should have like a button that plays clappy noises. You can tell this is a cheap budget. And if you'd like to see me take this up and maybe even get my face in this like some of the others, maybe you want to keep my face off. But, feel free, go to patreon.com and become a supporter. $1, $5, $10 a month means more than you can imagine. And, for the price of a Starbucks coffee at $5 a month, you make a huge difference. And like you hear, Chrisanetta said, it'd bring closure to my life seriously. If it wasn't for the people supporting on Patreon, I wouldn't be able to have this funds in order to provide that test for her. So please help me help others. If my videos have helped you out at all, please consider, supporting the channel with your, donations and support on Patreon. Subscribe there for, being a supporting donor. And that way we can help you with improved quality of videos and also help more people, which is the goal of this channel, to help others just like hopefully we've helped you. Well, there you have it. The two gems, and I mean they are diamonds. They are something that you absolutely need to be doing, and that's the consistency checker and the auto cluster. And we'll talk more about the auto clusters. We'll probably have one on genetic affairs here shortly and go over some of the things we talked about here. But until then, I appreciate you all. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. It actually helps us with YouTube. We just passed the 5,200 people mark. Wow. Just 5,200. That's just bizarre to me. The next milestone is 10,000, folks. So when we hit the 10,000 subscriber mark, we'll have another giveaway, and hopefully we'll have enough patrons by then that we can actually give out more, maybe, kits from each one, or maybe some of these companies will step up and realize that, there's over 5,000 of you listening pretty regularly, and they'll actually donate some kits that I can donate to you. Maybe they'll give back to the community here. So if you work for Ancestry, MyHeritage, 23andMe, FTDNA, or know somebody that does, get a hold of me. That email, dnafamilytrees@gmail.com, and let's see if you'd like to help me help the community. That's what we're all trying to take care of, right? All right. Well, until then, thank you all for listening. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you again next week. And congratulations, Chrisanetta. You're the winner. Take care. Bye-bye.